When I had my experience, I was a true atheist. True atheist. I didn't believe in any kind of religion. I didn't believe in anything. I thought this was all foo-foo. I am an engineer. I was up on a bucket truck. We were running some electrical lines. We were running late. We started to kind of try to hurry up. We decided, I'm going to stay up on the bucket. We're not going to go up and down. And you just be careful with the trees and navigate delicately. The guy that was with me, my partner, was more worried about electrocuting me up on top. So he was more worried about looking up, and he just kind of bumped into a tree. I hit the bucket and I broke all my ribs on my right side. I was sent to an emergency room, of course. There was some issues with my ribs that weren't healing properly. Was sitting in the emergency room waiting, and I know the nurse said, "Here, if you need anything, push this button." And I sat on that bed and I was really struggling to breathe at one point. I thought about pushing the button, but because I grew up in the South Bronx and we're supposed to be these tough men, I said no. I could manage this. I could get through this. I always do. I waited about 45 minutes, and when I finally pushed the button, the nurse came in and she just looked at me and she just hit the cold blue. That was the beginning of my experience of dying, and I had a series of emotions because I was suffocating, so it was kind of slow. I'll tell you what my first emotion was. When everybody ran into the room, my first emotion was shame. Just stripped me down so quickly that I just felt shame. After I had that sense of shame, I started to feel, what if this is real? What if something's really happening here? And what's going to go? What's going to happen to my family? Because I never expected anything like this. So you're totally unprepared. And I'm thinking, how are they going to manage? And that created a tremendous lump. I started thinking about God. You know what? If you get me through this event, I will change. I'll change my way of being. I'll be a better person. You won't regret it, kind of thing. I'm waiting. Nothing happened. And then I felt this sense of anger. Like I knew he wasn't real. And then I got this tremendous sense of fear. And because I thought when I die, there's nowhere for me to go, I didn't believe in anything, that I would just be shut off like a light bulb and just turn into nothingness. So I became very fearful and I wanted so badly to ask somebody to hold my hand. And then I started thinking, well, I can't ask for help because my father would be ashamed of me because I'm supposed to be tough. I got to tough this out. So I stiffened and I waited for death. I started to hear the IB and it sounded like raindrops hitting on a tin roof. So it was like splash, splash, splash. I looked at the wallpaper and I'll never forget this because my eyes were so acute that I could see the grain in the wallpaper. And there's this sense of wonder happening within me at the same time as I'm dying and I'm scared. Terrified might be a better word. And then I noticed this shadow by the door and it just stood there. And then I started thinking, you know what? I've had such a hard and difficult life. Maybe it's okay to kind of let go. Maybe there's no shame in this. I'm not quitting. I'm not giving up. I'm just realizing that there's nothing I could do to stem this chain of events, right? I can't stop it. I kind of said, it's okay. It's okay to die. And the minute I said that, or thought that, this shadow just moved. And it just moved around everybody in that room. And in my mind, I could see its hand reaching out to me. And it just touched my toe. And the minute it touched my toe, I just felt this tremendous sense of relief and relaxation and peace and love and calm. and I wasn't struggling to breathe anymore. I was in bliss, and I felt this breeze, this really warm breeze just blowing. And I visualized, because I got long hair, I'm thinking, wow, my hair must be blowing. This breeze, this is kind of like amazing. And then I felt myself kind of being lifted until I found myself in the corner of the room. And I was observing the effort by the CPR team, the group that was there trying to save my life. And I looked at them and I could see there was a doctor right over me, just pumping, pumping, pumping. And I could see there was a lot of stress in her face. And I looked at myself and I said, that's me and I'm dead. But if that's me, then who am I? This is the first thought that came to me, incredibly enough. And then I just heard this voice right next to me say, think of your body as a car. And that car has like 5 million miles on it, and there's nothing we could do to fix it anymore. So, you have to now say goodbye to your body. And I thought, wow, I just kind of said it was okay to die. Now I'm standing here because I feel like I'm standing there, right? I don't know what I look like. I don't know what form I'm in, but I know I'm in some form of existence. And I look at myself, and something very strange happened. For the first time in my life, I loved and appreciated who I was and who I've been. And I was so grateful for that body, that vessel, for giving me the opportunity to live the life that I lived. And I think it's something we rarely do. Take that 1 second to say, I'm not flawed. I'm the way I'm supposed to be, because we're always looking for what's wrong with us. We never really appreciate what we have that's good about us. And I started to get these memories of what I call everyday benign things. So somebody smiling, my little brother, me holding his hand, a kiss, simple things, a child looking at you with this amazing love in their eyes, your children. Because those are things that happen every day. Just taking in a breath of air. How insane and how amazing that is, right? So I had this insane appreciation for who I had been and who I was. And then the voice said to me, okay, now it's time for us to move on. And we started walking. Now, I never saw this presence, so I don't know what it was. It felt feminine. And then I could see this huge hole in the ground, like a big black hole. And we're kind of walking right into it, and we walk right into it, and then I feel like I'm falling. And it was a bit of a painful experience because I feel like something was being ripped off of me. And it felt like I was falling forever. And when I finally hit what I would call ground, it kind of ended for a second, and then she kind of said, you gotta keep going. And there was another one. And I went into that hole, and I fell, and I kept falling, and I felt this thing just ripping things off of me. When I hit the bottom, the first thing I saw was this mass of color. And the color was just moving, and it had so much life in it that I became instantly amazed. My expectation when I died was that I would encounter nothing and become nothing. Now I'm beginning to see things that were mind-boggling in the sense that this color was alive. It was living, and it was moving, and it was talking to me, and it was talking to me like millions of voices. So it sounded like chatter, like but somehow there was some kind of comprehension happening at a level that even there I couldn't really understand. And then they just opened up, and I saw this amazing forest. Now, I grew up in New York City, so that's to me quite striking because I saw these mountains and I could see this the shadow that the clouds make on the mountains, and they were so dark and contrasty. And I could see these wild herds of animals just running. And I found that I was kind of hovering. I saw this amazing vista, and I'm looking up and I'm seeing that mountain, and I'm realizing that I'm flying. So I said, "Oh my gosh, I'm flying!" And I heard this voice just say to me, "That's normal here." And then I thought about my children, and this was the only aspect of when I was transitioning that was a bit painful to me. So I said, "What's going to happen to my kids?" And that voice said to me, "Don't worry, you could see them from here." And when I heard that, that was like the most amazing thing that I have ever heard. And I said, "Oh, wow, this is amazing." So it took all my fears away. And then I just started flying, and I started moving over this landscape and looking down and feeling, of course, an amazing sense of peace and calm and tranquility that comes with it, and this deep sense of love. There's no way to really describe it. You've heard that probably 100 times, but there really isn't. But I continued on my journey, and I went over the mountaintops, and I could see snow on the top, and I was like, wow, so amazed. I was really awed more than anything. And then I looked out into the horizon, and I could see the sun. But I saw the sun as if I'm looking through a telescope, and I could see the flares coming out of it. And I felt that this wind that I was feeling was, giving birth there. And it was this warm air that was just coming to me. And that's why I was able to fly. That's what was giving me this lift, this warm air. And I'm thinking all these things, and I look down and I see this amazing cove, and I see a beach, and I see a man in the water. He's like knee deep in the water. And he's got 6 children holding onto his right hand in a string, right, in a line, and one child on his left hand. And I said, wow, that's pretty amazing. Let me go down and see what that's all about. So I moved down, and maybe I'm about 10 feet, 15 feet away, and he turns around. That was my father. It was amazing to see him, but what was more amazing was that me and my father had a very, very hard relationship. We used to bump heads tremendously, and he used to drink, and he was quite abusive. And even though I was the seventh of 8 children, I became like my mother's protector. And so we had a lot of clashes. And I don't ever remember saying to my father in life that I love you, or he to me. And his ways were very strict. So we couldn't hug. That wasn't what men do. It was like he had this image of men being like empty, without a soul, without feelings, without, wow, what an opportunity to say to my father what I could never say to him in life. And so we had this exchange that was very emotional to me. But I understood that he loved me. And I think he understood that I loved him. So it kind of reunited us in a strange way. Not only did we meet there, but from a more spiritual perspective, we became one. Anyway, after all this amazing time, he looks at me and he says, look, you have to go back. And I'm looking at him and I said, no, I don't think so. I really like it here. He's like, no, you got to go back. It's not your time. And I'm looking at him like, no, I I want to stay. And then I felt this tugging, like in my chest, but coming from my back. And I started being pulled. And I went back into my body. I opened my eyes, and the doctor that was doing CPR, she kind of got surprised and she kind of lifted her head back a little. And then I went right back to my father. And I'm in this space again. And he's looking at me. He says, "No, you really don't get it. You have to come back." And he said, "Look, this is what we're going to do." So we kind of started to structure a deal in heaven. And he said to me, "Look, when it's your time, I promise I will come and get you." And I looked at him and I'm thinking, wow, what an amazing deal that is. I, how could I say no? And so I accepted that and I went back. When you have your experience of dying, you get this interconnectivity. You feel like you're connected to everything. So that sense of oneness is really profound. When you come back into your physical body again, you feel that sense of separation. So there's something about being in body that makes us feel like we're independent of the rest of the world. It's really soothing, eye-opening, and it's very calming. It's a calming feeling that it permeates through you to know that everything is as it should be in a sense, right? Everything's working towards a goal, and that goal is well beyond what we may ever know, but it's still doing it.